This is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We're here on Xbox Series S. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. If you're buying this game on the Xbox Store, consider using the affiliate link in the video description. Easy way to support the content. So, what are we getting here on the Series S? Well, we have a single performance mode. There's HDR support. There's Dolby Atmos support. So yeah, that single mode that we're getting is basically a sort of dynamic 1080p, like temporal at 30 FPS. There's no ray tracing. You do get some elements of the global illumination that you see on the Series X side of things, and there are cuts across the board in regards to I guess you would say additional pop-in. There's less draw distance, there's, the vegetation and stuff isn't as good, there's a heavier element of some environmental type ghosting stuff, and yeah, texturing kind of a little bit worse on some of the texture loading in the game as well. And also with the Series X version, if you've seen that one, there are some performance issues in this as well, which is a bit of a shocker considering, it's 30 FPS and 1080, which is disappointing. I think the Series S should be able to get some sort of performance mode here, and obviously, coming from the Series X side of things, it doesn't run the best there, but I do think the Series S is still capable of a little bit more for this one. I get that it's a pretty demanding game, but at the same time, it's a bit odd. So under the visual settings, despite not having sort of a performance or anything like that, you do have a couple field of view options, which I wouldn't really recommend because those are going to impact the performance further. You do have things like motion blur, film grain, and aberration stuff you can turn on and off if you would like to. Yeah, that's kind of your settings when it comes to the visual elements of this game for the Series S. And yeah, it's, it is a big visual downgrade over what I'm used to, even on the performance mode. I still do think the game, does look relatively good in regards to just the style of the experience, the combat, the cool lightsaber stuff, the sense of scale, the scope of it all. Yeah, it is still a pretty good looking game, all things considered, on the Series S, but obviously the lack of having, a performance mode, lack of having 60 FPS is a little bit disappointing because we've seen many other games, especially a current gen game, we've seen many of them actually be able to obtain or achieve that, or achieve somewhat close to that. So for me, it is a little disappointing that they weren't able to push and, kind of make that happen here for this particular title. So definitely a bit of a bummer in that regard. So if you're not familiar with this series, this is actually the second entry. Fallen Order was the first one. And you jump into the shoes of, well, this, not really a Jedi, really the birds working with the Imperials. That's hilarious. Yeah, not really a Jedi until, you kind of get a field promotion last time, so you could become a Jedi. You lost everything, you were in hiding, and, through your acts of the first game, you become confident, you reconnect with the Force, and now, it's been years later, and you're fighting the Empire, and it just seems like it's a bad situation, all the way around, until there's a glimmer of perhaps somewhere that you might end up that could be safe. And that is the big driving force behind the game, is you as your character interacting with others and kind of digging into secrets of the past in order to, kind of figure out your way in the galaxy. Now, that galaxy here is very intimate and small because there's literally only two planets that you go on. There's a few asteroids, but it's just two planets, which is a little disappointing because, well, that is really, really creative. Sorry, it's just, that is so weird looking. I did not notice that before. That is That is really odd. Sorry, as I get totally sidetracked there, but yeah, and that's kind of the big driving force behind this game is you trying to figure out your way, you trying to understand things, the balance of like the Force, and you know, your typical Star Wars sort of thing. Now, I do believe if you are coming in here fresh, you know, you haven't played the first game, I think, you know, they've got like a little bit of a summary video, they give you details. I think you can come in here, and I think you can enjoy this one without having played the first one. But obviously, I think if you are a fan of the original game, coming in here, you will be pleasantly surprised by the continuing story arc, the continued development of the characters, and you know, a lot of the changes along the way. It's kind of interesting. 3 E3 VE3. That's kind of a funny sort of terminology. Okay, I need to heal. Yeah, because I'm gonna die because I didn't heal. That was my bad. So this game is sort of like Dark Souls-esque in terms of being like the Dark Souls of Star Wars. Like if you die in a certain spot, you might have to go way back to a checkpoint and like retread where you've been. Going back quite far. See, this is not really like checkpoints. You know, some of the boss fights, definitely like that too. You got to redo the whole boss fight. And then there's like towards the end of the game, it's a bit grindier, which honestly seems a bit weird. Oh, did I finally catch that thing? What does it do? Sorry, I've been trying to catch one of these the whole time. Oh, it's got a shard. Okay, because I was saying, it's like, what is the point of these weird things that like scare you off and you can never catch them? Finally got one. Anyways, yeah, it gets like, you know, really well thought out levels, lots of parkour movement, lots of like secrets and things you're doing, and then like the last couple levels, it's like, okay, go fight this guy, or we're in this room and you just fight waves of enemies, and it's like, that's a bit weird, but it is, you know, like 15+ hour game. There's side quests, there's side missions you can take part in. There's a lot of extra like little activities. But yeah, I was a little like, I was expecting a bit more of a like galaxy sort of spanning experience, if that makes sense. Like you go through 2 planets. One is a sand planet, and then one is this planet, which is supposed to be the luscious planet, but it's more like a badlands sort of. It's like it's another, basically just a glorified almost sand planet, to be honest, if I'm just being straightforward. So you visit these 2 places and then like a couple asteroids, and it's like scenically it's very similar. Like it's a really nice looking game at times. You know, you get to go visit some cool like cloud type places, but yeah, I was kind of visually, I was hoping for something a little bit more, because, you know, Star Wars, you can do like, you know, you could do so much with Star Wars in regards to like locations, and you have like limited, you know, a limitless galaxy that you can explore. And I was like, that's all you want to do? I was like, oh, okay. So that aspect is a little disappointing to me, because I was just kind of hoping we would get a little bit more exploration. But it is a chunky, meaty story that I think, you know, kind of develops the characters well. I think it expands the story, the lore, and the, you know, the world of this particular character, and, you know, his friends, his allies, and everything in great ways. And, you know, outside of like performance and stuff like that, I do think, you know, from a narrative standpoint, it does quite well. Some of the stuff is a little like weird, and they do throw in a lot of the new Disney type things randomly into this one that are like, I don't know, they feel slightly out of place, but it is a bit sort of odd that it's like randomly, it's like, oh, you know, now we're investigating this thing that doesn't really have anything to do with this thing, and it all wraps up. I don't know, you just gotta kind of go with the flow of things. That's a lot of Star Wars, right? You just gotta deal with it. You do get to really, you know, customize your lightsaber and your little robot pal BD there, which is awesome. You know, there's some big, like, oh, wow, moments and stuff like that. As, like, a Star Wars fan, I'm like, oh, that's crazy. And, you know, I think that is a little bit, to a degree, what you kind of want. There is a, you know, like I said, some of the narrative, I was just like, I don't know. I feel like this could have been developed a little bit better. It does seem like it definitely needed a bit more polishing, though, gameplay-wise, and some of the stuff could have been extended a little bit further, too. I kind of felt from the narrative standpoint, I was like, this area, well, lengthy, could have been like a little bit more thought out. There's like, again, there's like a lot of spots where you kind of just like have to go with it, and you're like, oh, now I got a maximum health increase? That would have been helpful so long ago, doing some of those boss fights. Ugh, jeez, okay. Whatever, it is what it is. Anyways, yeah, no, I quite like this one. I do think it's a really good game. You know, on the Series S, obviously, the lack of 60 FPS is huge. But, you know, I think you can have a lot of fun with this one. If you're a big Star Wars fan, there's some really cool stuff to see. And, you know, there's some accessibility things. You know, I talk about it being difficult, but, you know, you can make it easier. I did also have some trouble, like, sort of exploration-wise. I didn't quite know where to go a lot of the time when I was going to places. So there's an option where you could turn that on. And I know what you're thinking, well, if you could turn that on, why didn't you turn it on? It's, you know, because when I try to review this stuff, I try to play it, like, you know, at the level that it sort of, like, expects you to play it at, if that makes sense. Like, really down the middle, sort of normal, sort of, like, you know, the suggested stuff, everything like that. I try to play it as you're supposed to, so that I can experience it in a way that I'm assuming most people that are playing games are going to experience it, because I think that is the proper way to go about it, or at least I try my best to. So it wasn't like too terribly difficult, but there were some parts where I was like, yeah, this is definitely Souls-esque here. I'm like, holy. You do get a lot of different ways to approach the game, though, in terms of kind of improving your character. There's lots of different stances with your sabers. There's skills you can improve. There's hidden things in the environment that can give you a hand on stuff. Like, there's definitely a lot to see and a lot to do in this one. And I think they, you know, again, kind of nailed a lot of this feeling of Star Wars, providing a good story, providing a good cast of characters, you know, having a lot of fun with things. You know, they got the charm of, like, the droids, which is kind of funny, the charm of the stormtroopers. You know, there's a lot of good stuff to kind of enjoy and have fun with in this one. But there is elements of, like, I wish this, you know, had maybe a little bit more time. Those birds are so annoying. A little bit more time to be worked on, and, you know, some of the beats of the story kind of expanded upon a little bit. But I still think at the end of the day, you're going to have a really good time with this one. If you like the first one, you're going to be like, this is really cool. If you're a Star Wars fan, you're probably going to enjoy it. You know, there's a lot to like about this title. You know, performance-wise, obviously, I think I expect a little bit more. But, like, you know, on the Series S side of things, it's not... Like, it's a very low target, 1080-30 to hit. And, like, it does, you know, occasionally it doesn't quite hit the mark, and, you know, they've made all these cutbacks. But if you're on the Series S, you're probably, you know, sort of used to that sort of thing at this point, I would imagine. So it's not the biggest deal in the world, and it's still, for, like, a Series S title, it's a pretty good-looking game. So I think that is likely to be less of an issue for you if you're jumping into that one. So I don't think performance is as big of an issue for this particular platform. At that point, it would really come down to, say, you know, elements of, like, a little bit of the grind towards the end, stuff like that. But I would think you're getting a good, well, I mean, as good as it gets with this, like, you know, frame rate and stuff, a pretty good package and all that. I think you can have a good amount of time going through it, you know, traversing these different environments. The while similar are actually a little bit different as you go to different places. Oh, geez, am I able to go down there? Remember if that looks like a cliff of death. And then, you know, as you're going along, you're opening shortcuts, and you can, like, you know, kind of, like, revisit areas, and you can find, you know, different secrets and hidden stuff along the way. So I think that aspect of it's very well done. And I like the development further of certain characters, the introduction of new characters, and, you know, some of the cool things you get to do in it. Like, there's this one part that I love to highlight. And I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, obviously, too. Like, you know, I could just sit here and, like, dive into spoilers, but I think that, honestly, would just ruin it for a lot of people that want to play it, right? So I try to do it a good balance when I do these reviews. So, you know, like, there's this one part where you're, like, in a desert area. Yeah, a lot of the game's desert area, right? But you're sort of, like, I guess you would say it's an action sequence where you're moving very fast, and there's, like, green stuff in the air, and you're sort of moving around, and it's just, like, it's a complete cool power trip. It feels awesome. It looks so neat, and it was just, like, a very, very well done moment. There was a moment later on where I was like, it was a moment of, like, complete terror, where I was like, oh, I know what's happening, like, I was predicting it, and then it did happen. I was like, oh, and I was still surprised that it happened, even though I was predicting that it was going to happen, and, you know, that in itself was really, really quite cool. You know, I loved that aspect of it. So that was, yeah, that was really, really neat that they were able to, you know, kind of put that all together. I quite like that. And then there was some moments that I think, you know, do have, like, levels of predictability to them, but they still managed, at least for me, to give me some good, like, twists and turns. And I was like, you know, some stuff I wasn't able to predict, and I was like, oh, that's really, really cool. And, you know, I like the surprises and what they were doing with this one. I like the charm of the characters. I think they've just really put together, you know, an enticing game, an enticing sequel that, returning fans will really, really like and appreciate as we get this next step in this journey. Because I'm sure, and I don't think this would be spoilers to any degree, I'm sure we'll get a third one. I mean, you don't do two of anything in, any industry these days, like movies and games and stuff. It's always threes. You don't go to two and and miss going to three most of the time. I mean, I'm sure occasionally it happens, but yeah, I would fully expect a follow-up to this one at some point down the road. And it's going to be interesting to see because of how everything is set up. And yeah, I'm really just sort of eager to, I don't know, just enjoy more of like this character and the narrative and the world of Star Wars. I hope, like a future entry, they maybe go a little bit more explorative like, visit some more places. Because it's just like, it's such a rich universe, and I feel like you're sort of, not fully taking advantage of such an exciting sort of place. A new seat, like I didn't catch that any other time. I walked over that so many times. Okay, whatever. So, yeah, there's much to enjoy in the world of Star Wars, as I know you probably are aware of if you're interested in Star Wars games. But I think this one's done really well for like customization, for the fun of it, for the challenge, for the combat, for the interesting places you can go, the things that you can do. They're very creative with the levels, and yeah, there's just some things here or there where I'm like, this could have been taken a little further, but I think they've got a very appealing kind of package put together. I think they've got some interesting stuff here. The combat is fun and dynamic, and like I said, there's a lot of like sort of I guess you would say immersion and like customization, even though it's like within a sort of set styling and environment where you can actually feel like you are, impacting this place and then using the force and all that. And it's a cool game. That's the biggest thing. I really like playing this one. I just wish some areas here or there were pushed a little bit more, and I wish the Series S was pushed a little bit more, because I do think this little console, what are you doing here, word fishing dude? I think this console could do more than necessarily what they were, kind of doing with it. But there is a lot to see. There's a lot to do. Like I said, this story to me is meaty. I think it offers a lot of. We still can't use this lift from here. Are you kidding me? Oh yeah, we got to do this thing. Oh, I think we can finally do this one. One sec here. Gonna see if I can actually finish off this area, because we came here earlier and we weren't able to do anything with it, so that's kind of nice. But yeah, I think good improvements, neat things to do, neat things to see, great like performances, good gameplay. There's a lot of fun, a lot of action in here. That's the wrong ability. They do keep kind of surprising you the whole way through. There's always something going on. Did I accidentally turn that off? Yeah, there we go. I accidentally turned that off. There's a lot to this one. It's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of fun. I want to see the story continue. I want to go off on more adventures. And I'm really curious to see. Oh, Kashyyyk paint, nice. Really curious to see what the next step of the journey is. What's going to happen next, where things are going to head, how they're going to develop this further. How do you get up there, actually? I am so curious about that. Have I been up there? Oh, I have been up. Oh, okay, I see. I don't want to spoil anything, but yeah, okay, I get that now. It's weird that I didn't open that before. Huh. But yeah, they do some neat wonders with the environment and the characters and the design. For a current gen game, it's it's definitely pushing the consoles. I do think the Series S can give you a little bit more. I'm hoping down the road they add like a bit of a performance mode, which would be awesome. But like, at that point when you're kind of looking at it and it's like it's 1080p at 30 and it's like a current title, current gen title, and it's like that is a little crazy to me that this one can't do 60, because I'm like, how much would you have to dip this one to actually do kind of 60 FPS is I think a very fair question. But yeah, I hope you kind of got an idea of this one in terms of like gameplay wise, what it provides, what it's like, if it's something that you might find interesting, because I do think this is a pretty good game. But yeah, this is also quite a dip from what I'm used to, and his hair looks so weirder at like the lower resolution quality. Like it looks odd almost. if that makes sense. Like it really stands out. It's bizarre.